My name's Eric, I'm 29, and I guess you could say I've always been the background character in my own family. You know the type, not the black sheep exactly, more like the invisible one. The guy who remembers every birthday, sends flowers on Mother's Day, helps with moving day, lends tools, and quietly picks up the tab when Dad forgets his wallet. I'm not flashy. I'm not the loud one. I'm the dependable one. And maybe that's why it took me so long to realize I was being used. Or worse, excluded. It started small. A missed invite here, a forgotten group chat there. Oh, you didn't get the text? I thought someone told you, but I let it slide. Because that's what you do when you love people, right? You assume the best. You give the benefit of the doubt. You don't let your insecurities speak for you. But sometimes, silence is just the sound of someone trying not to cry in front of a dozen people wearing matching shirts you didn't even know existed. The baby shower was for my niece, Ellie. Well, technically she's my cousin's daughter, but we've always called each other aunt and uncle in this sprawling, tangled family tree. I showed up with a carefully wrapped gift, a hand-knitted blanket I'd commissioned from a woman at the farmer's market who did custom embroidery. Ellie's name was stitched in soft lavender script across the corner. I was proud of it. Felt like I'd finally nailed a thoughtful, personal gift. The venue was a rented garden patio behind a quaint little cafe. String lights, mason jar centerpieces, pastel streamers fluttering in the breeze. Everyone was already there when I arrived. I spotted my sister, Jen, by the drink table, talking animatedly to her cousin Rachel. I waved. Jen gave me the kind of wave you give a mailman, brief, distant, almost performative. Still, I smiled, kept it polite. I signed the guest book, handed over the blanket, and made small talk with the few relatives who actually remembered my name without prompting. It wasn't until halfway through the afternoon, as I helped one of the older uncles balance a paper plate of mini quiches, that I brought up the picnic. Looking forward to the family picnic next weekend, I said casually. I took the day off work. My Uncle Dave, who's always been the gruff but lovable type, let out a low chuckle. Oh, that was yesterday. I blinked. What? He tilted his head at me, as if trying to gauge whether I was joking or just clueless. Didn't anyone tell you? I just stood there. My mouth opened, then closed. I scanned the nearby faces. Some avoided eye contact. Others, like my cousin Maddie, just looked at me with pity. And then came the final gut punch. My cousin Nate, who I used to babysit when he was 6, pulled out his phone and turned it around to show me a group photo. There they all were. Matching navy blue shirts with Family Picnic 2025 in white cursive across the chest. Grinning faces, folding chairs, a massive picnic cake shaped like a watermelon slice. Everyone. Mom, Dad, Jen, even Great Aunt Louisa, who hasn't left her house in 2 years. I swallowed hard. Oh, I managed to say, forcing a chuckle that sounded as brittle as dried leaves. Then Jen walked by. She glanced at the photo and said with that smug little half-smile I've come to loathe, it was kinda a close family thing. I turned to her, stunned. I am close family. She raised an eyebrow. Sure, but you know what I mean. No, Jen, I really didn't. I excused myself a few minutes later, pretended I had to take a call, then just walked to my car. The whole drive home, my hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly I could see the whites of my knuckles. My head buzzed with questions I'd asked myself a dozen times before but never dared say aloud. Was I just boring? Had I done something to offend someone? Did they even notice I wasn't there? But somewhere between the freeway exit and my apartment parking lot, something in me clicked. Not snapped, this wasn't rage. It was quieter than that. Cooler. Like a fog finally lifting. I realized something vital that day. It wasn't that they forgot me. It was that they deliberately chose not to include me. And worse, they didn't even feel the need to hide it anymore. I sat in the parking lot for almost an hour, staring at my phone. Scrolling through old messages, group texts, Facebook posts, calendar invites. Everything from the past few months started to make a horrifying sort of sense. The birthday dinner I'd never been told about. The group vacation they'd already booked by the time they mentioned it to me. The sudden coldness from people I used to be close with. It wasn't an accident. It was a pattern. And I was done pretending not to notice. That night, I opened my laptop and pulled out a notebook. I made a list, names, obligations, favors, the quiet ways I'd been propping up this family like an unpaid intern. Dad's car insurance? Auto-drafted from my account. Mom's streaming subscriptions? On my family plan. Jen's dog? I'd walked it every weekend for months when she was too busy. Cousin Ryan's job application? I'd rewritten his entire resume. I wasn't just forgotten. I was being used. And suddenly, I didn't feel like being useful anymore. I started with the little things. Quiet moves. Subtle. I removed a few shared accounts. Changed my Netflix password. Took myself off the family phone plan I'd been subsidizing since college. Nobody noticed. Not yet. But they would. Then came the bigger things. I pulled out the spreadsheet I'd kept of all the bills I'd paid over the years, the things I'd told myself didn't matter. And I drafted a few polite but firm emails. Not angry. Just professional. Detached. And then I made one final decision. Something personal. Something symbolic. The kind of move that would say everything I'd never said out loud. The next family event was only a week away, Ellie's christening. Formal. Church. Reception after. I was on the guest list this time, surprisingly. Probably because I still had the nicer camera and they wanted decent photos. I RSVP'd yes. Smiled. Played along. But what I had planned for that day, let's just say it ensured no one would ever forget me again. And that's where things really got interesting. The morning of Ellie's christening was bright and cloudless, the kind of spring day you only get a few times a year. The church was one of those old stone ones with stained glass windows and tall archways that made your footsteps echo. I arrived early, dressed in a sharp gray suit, the same one I'd worn to my cousin's wedding 2 years ago, the one I'd photographed for free because they couldn't afford a professional. I brought the camera, of course. Wouldn't want to break tradition. Inside, the pews were filling quickly. I saw Jen near the front, whispering something to Mom and snickering. Dad caught my eye and gave me a curt nod. No smile, no warmth, just acknowledgement, like I was the doorman at a hotel he barely recognized. I walked past them all and took a seat near the aisle, where I'd have a clear shot for photos, because even when they excluded me, I still knew how to play the part. But this time, I wasn't there just to take pictures. The service went smoothly. Ellie cried a bit when the priest poured the water over her head, but everyone cooed and clapped as if it were the climax of a Broadway show. I snapped a few shots, more out of habit than anything else. But while everyone was focused on the altar, I kept glancing at the front row. Jen, Mom, Dad, Cousin Rachel, Aunt Marie, all laughing, whispering, elbowing one another like they were in on some shared joke. I wasn't laughing. I was memorizing. After the ceremony, everyone headed to the church hall for the reception. It was modest, but well decorated. White tablecloths, flower centerpieces, a long buffet table lined with finger sandwiches, deviled eggs, and tiny cupcakes with pink frosting. The gift table was already overflowing. Someone had brought a giant plush elephant that probably cost more than my monthly groceries. I walked in with a canvas bag over my shoulder and a carefully wrapped box in my hand. I placed the box gently among the other gifts, then moved to the side of the room where the slideshow was looping: baby bump photos, gender reveal parties, maternity shoots. My sister walked by me with a plate of food and muttered just loud enough for me to hear. Try not to be awkward this time. I didn't even look at her. I just smiled and said, don't worry. I won't be invisible much longer. Her brow furrowed slightly, but she kept walking. Maybe she thought I was joking, or bitter, or just tired. But I meant every word. As everyone settled into their seats and the buffet line thinned out, the host, my cousin Rachel, stood up and clinked her glass for attention. We want to thank everyone for coming today to celebrate sweet baby Ellie, she said, beaming. We've had so much love and support, and we're just so grateful to all of you. Polite applause, smiling faces. I stood by the edge of the room, near the light switch. My fingers were already wrapped around the small remote I had in my pocket, one I'd synced to my laptop the night before. Rachel continued, and now, we'd love to share a short video tribute to all the people who made this possible, our amazing family. Some of you might recognize a few faces. She gestured to the projector, and the slideshow faded to black. That's when my version began. At first, people didn't notice the difference. It started with a few innocent photos, family cookouts, birthdays, old reunions. But then, the captions changed. 4th of July 2023, everyone invited, except Eric. Mom's birthday dinner. We thought you were busy. Family picnic 2025. Didn't anyone tell you? Each slide was time-stamped, dated, labeled. I'd pulled the screenshots from Facebook, texts, even that stupid family WhatsApp group I'd been removed from without explanation. The room began to shift. You could feel it. People craning their necks, whispering, glancing nervously toward Jen and Mom and Dad. Then came the real kicker, a slide that simply read, a running tab, followed by a spreadsheet. Itemized. Every expense, every favor, every small thing I'd paid for or contributed over the years, from Christmas dinners to loan repayments I never asked to be returned. Each row ended with a short note. Never reimbursed. Never thanked. By the time the total flashed on screen, the room was dead silent. $11,700. I let it hang there. No music, no voiceover, just cold numbers and a room full of people choking on awkwardness. The final slide was a photo of me, smiling, holding a birthday cake, alone. The caption read, "Don't worry, I brought my own party." Then the screen faded to black. I stepped forward, the remote still in my hand. My voice was calm, too calm, maybe. "Thank you for watching. Just wanted to make sure I wasn't forgotten this time." You could have heard a pin drop. Mom stood up, her face pale. "Eric, what was that?" I looked right at her. That was the truth. Dad opened his mouth, then closed it. Jen just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. I turned to Rachel and handed her a USB. "That has all the original photos and files. Feel free to delete them. Or keep them. Up to you." Then I picked up my canvas bag and started walking toward the door. People were whispering again. Except this time, it wasn't about how I was always late or too quiet. It was about what they'd just seen. About what they'd ignored. About what they'd allowed. Jen followed me out, her heels clicking angrily on the tile. "That was messed up, Eric. You humiliated the whole family." I stopped just outside the door and turned to her. "No, Jen," I reminded the family. "There's a difference." She crossed her arms. "What are you even trying to prove?" I took a breath. The kind you take before closing a door you know won't reopen. That I was here. That I mattered. That I'm done being the guy everyone remembers after the party's over. And then I left. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. Because what happened next? What happened after that video? That was when the real fallout began. When the calls started. When the story started unraveling. When secrets got dragged out of the dark. And that's where things went from awkward to explosive. I didn't go home right away. I drove around the city with the windows down, letting the spring air hit my face, letting it cool the quiet storm inside me. I wasn't angry, not in the way I used to be. Not the simmering kind of resentment that ate away at me in silence. No, what I felt now was something clearer, sharper. A strange kind of peace that only comes after a long overdue confrontation. I'd finally said it, without shouting, without begging, without hoping someone would understand. I'd laid it all out and walked away. On my terms. But peace has a way of shaking people who thrive on control. By the time I got back to my apartment, I had 9 missed calls. 2 from Mom. 1 from Dad. 4 from Jen. 1 from Rachel. 1 unknown number that I was pretty sure was Aunt Marie trying to disguise her call. I let them go to voicemail. I wasn't ready to hear excuses or tears or guilt trips. Not yet. Then the group chat was reborn. Yes, the same family group chat I'd been silently removed from 6 months earlier. Apparently, someone decided now would be the perfect time to re-add me. The notification popped up while I was making tea. "You've been added to family." The first message came from Jen. Okay, well, that slideshow was completely out of line. This was a baby's christening, not your therapy session. Then Mom chimed in. "Eric, honey, that was extremely hurtful. You embarrassed us in front of everyone. Couldn't you have just spoken to us privately?" "Rachel, I get that you're upset, but airing all that at a baby shower? Not cool." And then came Dad. "Grow up." That was it. Just those 2 words. Grow up. No explanation. No apology. Just the man who let me cover his car repairs without a thank you telling me I needed to mature. For a moment, I stared at my phone. I was almost tempted to reply. To write a long, carefully worded essay breaking down every year of silent resentment, every moment of being passed over, every favor and smile I'd given freely, only to be dismissed like a seat filler at their lives. But then I realized no amount of words would matter. They'd already decided who I was. Quiet Eric. Helpful Eric. The guy who never says no. The guy they only noticed when they needed something or when he dared to speak up. So I didn't respond. I left the group. That's when the text messages started rolling in, each more frantic than the last. Jen tried again. "You made your point. Can you stop now? You're making it worse." Mom's came next. "You've always been dramatic, but this is too much. We were just trying to protect you from feeling out of place." "Protect me? From my own family?" And then Rachel, in her usual soft approach, maybe you could come over for dinner and we can talk? Just us. I ignored them all. I didn't want a half-hearted sit-down dinner where someone microwaved store-brand lasagna and pretended like it could soak up decades of neglect. I didn't want the weak smiles or the defensive jokes or the quick pivots to "can't we just move on?" Because I wasn't moving on. Not yet. 3 days later, the real shift happened. It began with a call from my old coworker, Sam. "Dude," he said, "why is your sister asking about your job?" "What?" She DM'd me on LinkedIn. Said she was concerned you were acting out and wanted to know if everything was okay at work. She asked if your mental health had been affecting your projects lately. I froze. "She what?" Sam sighed. I didn't say anything. But, man, that's cold. Jen had never even visited my office. Never asked about my job unless she needed help making her resume look good. But now she was reaching out to my coworkers, trying to spin the narrative before I had the chance. That same night, I checked Facebook. The family was in damage control mode. Rachel had posted a long, heartfelt caption with a photo from the christening conveniently cropped to exclude the slideshow incident. "Family is everything. We may not be perfect, but we show up. And sometimes, people lash out when they feel left out. Let's all remember to love each other through the hard times." The comment section was a minefield of passive-aggressive pity. "Praying for your strength, Rachel. Some people just need attention. You're the bigger person. Keep being you." I didn't comment. I didn't even like it. But I screenshotted every last word. You see, what my family had never realized was that being quiet doesn't mean being clueless. That just because I wasn't the loudest voice in the room didn't mean I wasn't paying attention, watching, listening, remembering. So while they scrambled to rewrite the story, to paint me as unstable or bitter or selfish, I started preparing the next step. Not revenge for revenge's sake, but clarity, a kind of quiet justice. I started collecting receipts. Not just emotional ones, real ones. Bank statements, Venmo transactions, email threads, text messages, every favor, every cent, every moment where I'd stepped up and been treated like a doormat in return. And then something unexpected happened. Ellie's mother, Rachel's sister, Sophie, called me. We hadn't talked in months, maybe a year, but she sounded different, hesitant, like someone who'd seen a building catch fire and wasn't sure if she should scream or grab a bucket. "Eric," she said softly, "I just wanted to say I saw what happened. And I'm sorry." I blinked. "You are." I wasn't part of that picnic. I wasn't invited either. Jen said it was just a small thing. But when I saw that slideshow, I realized how long you've been dealing with this. I didn't know what to say. It was the first time anyone had actually acknowledged it out loud. "There are more people than you think," she continued, "who've been pushed out, forgotten. You're not the only one." That stuck with me. Because suddenly, this wasn't just about me. It wasn't just one ignored birthday or one family photo I wasn't in. It was a pattern, a family culture, one that picked favorites and discarded the rest like leftovers in the back of the fridge. I'd simply been the one to finally say something. And now? Now people were watching. I started getting messages from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. An old uncle who lived 2 states away. Even my godmother, who said she hadn't come to family gatherings in years because of the way they treated people like you. Every message strengthened my resolve. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. I was the mirror they'd spent years avoiding, and now that I'd held it up, they were scrambling to shatter it. And that's when I knew I hadn't gone far enough. What came next? That was the part that truly made sure no one ever forgot me again. But if you want to hear what I did next, and how the family's image of perfection completely imploded, just let me know. Because that is where the real fireworks started. I took a full week to disappear. Not from the world, just from them. I stopped responding to messages, muted the family members still blowing up my phone, and let the dust settle while they tore each other apart trying to assign blame. Jen tried calling me 6 more times. Mom left 2 long voicemails full of fake concern, thinly disguised as emotional blackmail. This family has been through so much, Eric. Don't throw it away over a misunderstanding. My favorite was Dad's blunt message. "You embarrassed your mother. Fix it." I didn't fix anything. I went quiet because I was working, planning. Not a tantrum, not an outburst, but a full, calm, calculated reckoning. You see, I knew my family well enough to predict exactly how they'd behave. They'd try to discredit me, smear me quietly behind the scenes, patch up their image publicly while calling me unstable in private. But I had something they never expected: documentation. Remember that spreadsheet from the slideshow? That was just the tip of the iceberg. I pulled every receipt, every email I'd sent to help Rachel's husband land his first job after his DUI. Every time I transferred money to help mom with unexpected bills. The years of payments for dad's car insurance. The time I bailed Jen out of a credit card hole so deep she had 3 collectors calling her in 1 week. They never even said thank you. Not once. I compiled it all into a neat, clean, factual document. No insults. No accusations. Just truth. A timeline. A pattern. And for each line, I added a short quote or message they'd sent at the time. Messages that showed the imbalance. Eric, can you just do this one thing? You're always so helpful. Nobody else has the time. At the end of the document, I wrote only this. I did all of this not because I had to, but because I thought I was part of a family. I see now that I was just a resource. I'm no longer available for that role. Consider this my resignation letter from the unpaid position of family doormat. Then I uploaded it to a shared Google Drive, and I sent it to everyone. Not just the core family group. I sent it to the extended family too. The cousins, the aunts, the uncles, even the ones who hadn't spoken to me in years. Especially them. I included a simple email header, in case anyone's curious why I won't be at the next close family gathering. That was it. The response was swift. It started small. A few texts from extended cousins I barely remembered. Messages like, "Damn, I had no idea," or "This explains so much." One even said, "You just wrote what half the family's been thinking for years." Then came the fallout. Mom called again, this time angry. Furious, even. "How dare you air our private affairs to everyone? That was family business." I calmly replied, "Exactly." And for the first time, the whole family's in on it. She hung up. Jen exploded in the group chat, calling me manipulative, vindictive, and obsessed with playing the victim. But her tantrum only made things worse for her, because people started chiming in. Sophie reminded everyone that Jen had deliberately excluded her from events too. My cousin Leo posted screenshots of Jen mocking another relative in a private chat. Aunt Marie, bless her, said what everyone else was thinking. This might have been uncomfortable, but it needed to be said. Dad didn't respond at all. He went silent. That's how I knew it had landed. He only shuts up when he knows he's cornered. What really tipped the scales, though, was when Rachel's husband, remember, the guy I helped land his job, replied to the email with a single sentence. "You're not wrong, Eric. I'm sorry I didn't say something sooner." That cracked the dam. People started opening up, sharing their own stories of being snubbed, dismissed, used. It was like the family's perfect little facade had been pierced, and everyone could finally breathe. Within days, the family's carefully curated image began to crumble. The matching shirt picnics, the all smiles photo dumps, the fake unity. It was all smoke and mirrors, and now the smoke was clearing. And as for me, I didn't return to the family functions. I didn't respond to the passive-aggressive invitations or the olive branch texts meant to make them feel better without ever apologizing. I stayed out, and it was peaceful. I took up hiking again, reconnected with old friends I'd lost touch with while juggling family obligations. I even started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I finally had space to unpack everything I'd shoved down for decades. A few months later, something happened that might have shattered me in the past. Mom ended up in the hospital for a minor surgery. Nothing life-threatening. But Jen called me, clearly expecting me to drop everything and rush over. "You're still her son, Eric." I paused before answering. "No," I said. "I was a son to people who treated me like one. I don't know who you and Mom decided I was, but I'm not that anymore." Then I blocked her. A week later, Rachel emailed me, not to guilt trip, but to genuinely apologize. She said she didn't realize how bad things had gotten, and she was sorry for being complicit. I didn't fully forgive her, but I appreciated the honesty. I told her so. We didn't pretend everything was fine. That was the first real adult conversation I'd had with a family member in years. And the best part? Ellie, little baby Ellie, grew up never knowing me as the family ghost. I sent her a birthday gift anyway. Not out of guilt, not to buy my way in, but because I still believed in doing things for the right reasons. Just not for the wrong people. Eventually, the calls stopped. The messages stopped. The invitations stopped. And I smiled every time one didn't come. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't an afterthought. I wasn't a helper. A ghost. A wallet. A plus one. I was Eric, the guy who stopped apologizing for taking up space. And trust me, they never forgot me again. They couldn't. My name is Jake, and if I had any doubts about where I stood in my family, they were erased the day I found out about the will. It wasn't even some dramatic, sit-down moment where my parents dropped the news themselves. No, I found out entirely by accident, by sheer dumb luck. It happened a few months ago when I was at their house, the same house I had been helping them pay for over the past 5 years. The mortgage, the occasional grocery runs, even fixing up things around the place. I was the one keeping it all together while my brother, Eric, did absolutely nothing. And when I say nothing, I mean nothing. No job, no responsibilities, just lounging around waiting for life to hand him everything on a silver platter, which, apparently, my parents were all too happy to provide. That day, I was helping my dad with some paperwork because, as usual, neither of them could be bothered to figure out how to do things themselves. He had asked me to scan some documents for him, a bunch of legal and financial stuff, and I didn't think twice about it until I saw it. A folder labeled estate plan and last will and testament sitting right there in the stack. Now, I don't normally snoop, but curiosity got the best of me. After all, I had been the one making sure they kept a roof over their heads. It wasn't exactly out of line to wonder how things were set up for the future. So I opened it. And that's when I saw the words that made my stomach drop. Everything, and I mean everything, was going to Eric. The house, their savings, their assets. Not a single mention of me, except for some generic line about loving both of their sons equally. Yeah, sure. Equally. That's why they made sure their golden child would inherit everything while the son actually keeping them afloat didn't even get a footnote. I felt like a fool. Here I was, bending over backward for them, making sure their bills got paid on time, making sure they never had to worry about food, while they sat back and planned for a future where I got absolutely nothing. And Eric? He wasn't just lazy, he was entitled. He never lifted a finger to help them, never contributed a dime, but he had somehow convinced them that he deserved it all. Maybe because he was the younger son, maybe because they just always babied him, maybe because he knew exactly how to manipulate them. Whatever the reason, they had made their choice. I sat there staring at the paper, my hands shaking from a mix of rage and betrayal. How long had they planned this? Had they always intended for me to just be their free financial safety net with nothing in return? Did they ever even appreciate what I did for them? I had no idea how long I had been sitting there, but eventually, my dad noticed I wasn't scanning anything. "Hey, Jake, what's taking so long?" he asked, walking back into the room. I didn't even bother to hide the will. I held it up and looked him dead in the eye. "So, this is how it is?" I said, my voice unnervingly calm. "Everything to Eric? After everything I've done for you?" My dad's face went pale for a second, but then he sighed, like I was some little kid throwing a tantrum. "Jake, it's not what you think." "Really?" I snapped. "Because it looks pretty damn clear to me. I've been paying your mortgage, helping with groceries, fixing the house up while Eric does nothing, and you still decided he's the only one who matters." Dad looked uncomfortable, but instead of actually explaining himself, he just muttered, "It's complicated." That was it. No apology. No attempt to justify it beyond those two useless words. Just a weak excuse and an expectant look, like he was waiting for me to drop it and go back to being their personal ATM. I should have walked out right then and there, but I wanted to hear it from both of them. So I called out for my mom. When she came in and saw the will in my hands, her reaction wasn't much better. She at least had the decency to look guilty, but the words that came out of her mouth made my blood boil. "Jake, honey, you don't need the inheritance," she said gently, like she was doing me a favor. "You have a good job. You're independent. Eric, well, he struggles. We just want to make sure he's taken care of." That was the moment something inside me snapped. They weren't even denying it. They knew exactly what they were doing, and in their minds, it was completely justified. They had spent years enabling Eric's laziness, and now they were planning to reward it by handing him everything while I got tossed aside like an afterthought. I took a deep breath, clenched my jaw, and set the will down on the table. "Got it," I said, my voice eerily calm. "Glad to know where we stand." Then I turned and walked out of the house, ignoring their protests as I slammed the door behind me. They had made their decision. Now it was time for me to make mine. I didn't go back to their house after that. I didn't call. I didn't check in. For the first time in years, I let them handle their own damn problems. If they needed something fixed, they could figure it out. If they needed groceries, they could find their own way to the store. And most importantly, if that mortgage bill showed up, well, I wasn't the one paying it anymore. The silence lasted about 2 weeks. At first, I think they assumed I was just pouting and would come crawling back like always. Maybe they expected me to cool off and apologize for daring to question their decision. But when the days kept passing with no word from me, and more importantly, no financial help, you could practically feel the shift in their attitude. Then, one afternoon, my phone buzzed. Dad texted, "The property taxes are due." That was it. No, he didn't text, "Hey, how have you been?" No, "Sorry for what happened." No, "We really appreciate everything you've done." Just a cold, transactional message as if I were still the walking bank they could tap into whenever they pleased. I stared at the screen for a moment, almost amused at how predictable they were. They really thought they could just demand money like nothing had happened? That I'd keep playing my part as their financial safety net, even after they made it clear I was disposable? I calmly typed back, "I'm sure Eric will handle it, since the house is his and all." It took exactly 5 minutes before my mom called. I let it ring. Then another text came through. Mom texted, "Jake, please don't be like this. We need to talk." Oh, now they wanted to talk? Now that their bills were piling up and reality was finally slapping them in the face? I waited an hour before replying. "There's nothing to talk about. You made your choice. Now you can live with it." I figured that would be the end of it for the day. I had made my stance crystal clear, and there wasn't a single part of me that felt guilty about it. But then Eric decided to chime in. His text came in late that evening, and the second I saw his name pop up on my phone, I knew it was going to be something obnoxious. Sure enough, when I opened it, I was greeted with pure entitlement. Eric texted, "Dude, why are you being such a drama queen? It's not a big deal. Just help them out like you always do." I nearly laughed. Not a big deal? He was really acting like I had no right to be mad about this. I typed back, "Nah, I think you've got it covered, since you're the favorite and all." Eric texted, "Oh my God, are you seriously mad about the will? Grow up, man. It's just money." Oh, now it was just money. Now that it was his to inherit, it suddenly didn't matter? The hypocrisy was astounding. I shot back. "Then you won't mind using some of that money to pay for the mortgage, right?" Silence. A few minutes later, my mom texted me again, this time going full guilt trip mode. Mom texted, "Jake, we're your parents. Family takes care of each other. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're just abandoning us?" I had to take a deep breath to stop myself from throwing my phone across the room. Abandoning them? I had spent years making sure they never had to struggle, all while they coddled Eric and rewarded his laziness. And now that they finally had to deal with the consequences of their own decisions, I was the bad guy? I wasn't falling for it. Not this time. I responded, "You made it clear I wasn't part of the family when you left me out of the will. Now Eric can take care of you." I could imagine my mom gasping dramatically at that. She always had a flair for acting like the victim, even when she was the one in the wrong. A few minutes later, my dad sent another text, and this one had me seething. Dad texted, "We're not asking for much. Just enough to cover the mortgage for a few more months until we figure things out. Don't be selfish." Selfish. The word made my blood boil. I had been bailing them out for years, sacrificing my own money, time, and energy to make their lives easier. I had done everything a good son was supposed to do. And how did they repay me? By making sure I got nothing in return. And now, when I was finally standing up for myself, I was the selfish one? I clenched my jaw, took a deep breath, and typed back, "No, I'm done." Then I turned off my phone. They had made their choice. Now they were going to live with it. The silence lasted a day. I knew my parents wouldn't give up that easily, but I wasn't expecting what happened next. The next morning, I woke up to a notification on my phone, a bank transfer request. I frowned, unlocking my phone to check. It was from my mom. She had actually sent me a request for money, like I was some ATM. The amount? $3,500. I stared at it in disbelief, half laughing at the audacity. No message. No explanation. Just a cold, shameless demand for the exact amount they needed to cover their overdue mortgage. They weren't even asking anymore. They were just assuming I'd cave. I declined it without hesitation. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Mom. I let it ring. Then came another text. Mom texted, "Jake, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it?" I took my time before replying, because it's not my responsibility. Try Eric. Another call. Declined. Then another text. Mom texted, "We're going to lose the house if you don't help us." Oh, now it was an emergency? After all those years of treating me like a walking wallet, Now they were finally facing the consequences? I typed back, maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter. A few seconds later, Dad chimed in. Dad, you're really gonna let your parents become homeless? Well, that one actually made me laugh out loud. The manipulation was so blatant it was almost funny. They weren't broke. They weren't about to be thrown on the streets. They just didn't want to dip into their own savings because they were so used to me covering everything. I ignored them for the rest of the day. That night, I got a text from Eric. Dude, just send them the money already. You're making this a bigger deal than it is. I clenched my jaw. This entitled little prick really thought he could lecture me? I typed back, you mean the same money you're inheriting? Why don't you send it? His response came fast. Eric texted, you know I don't have that kind of cash right now. Oh, so now it was about affordability? He was perfectly fine with me draining my accounts, but the second it was his turn, suddenly he had nothing to offer. I replied, guess you better figure it out then, bro. You're the one they chose. No response. I went to bed feeling oddly at peace, like I had finally broken free from years of manipulation. But the next day, things escalated. I was at work when I got a call from my apartment's front desk. Hey, Jake, your parents are here? I nearly dropped my phone. What? She hesitated before adding, they're saying it's an emergency and that you won't answer their calls. Oh, my God. They showed up at my apartment just because I stopped paying their bills? I took a deep breath, pinching the bridge of my nose. Please don't let them up. I'm not expecting them. There was an awkward pause. They're being kind of pushy. I clenched my jaw. I don't care. They can leave. I hung up and immediately got a text from Mom. We're downstairs. Open the door. No question. No explanation. Just another demand. I didn't reply. Another text from Mom. Jake, we're not leaving until you talk to us. I exhaled sharply, standing up from my desk. They weren't going to back down. Fine. I was about to teach them a lesson they wouldn't forget. I grabbed my keys and stormed downstairs, my blood boiling. I wasn't scared. I was furious. The sheer audacity of these people to show up at my home, uninvited, demanding money like I was their personal ATM. Not even a phone call first. Not even a half-hearted apology. Just a full-on ambush. They really thought they could just corner me into submission like I was some naive kid. I yanked the door open, and there they were, Mom, Dad, and, of course, Eric, all standing in a tight little formation like they were about to stage a family intervention. Mom had her arms crossed, her classic disappointed mother look locked and loaded. Dad was standing stiff, hands in his pockets, his expression a mix of frustration and entitlement, like he couldn't believe I was actually making him do this in person. And Eric? The little leech had the nerve to look bored, like this whole situation was just mildly inconvenient for him, like he wasn't the reason any of this was happening. The moment Mom saw me, she went full theatrics. Jake, finally, we need to talk. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. No, you need to leave. She blinked, as if she physically couldn't comprehend what I just said. Excuse me. You heard me. My voice was calm, controlled, but firm. You don't get to just show up at my apartment demanding money. That's insane. Dad let out a sharp scoff. Are you really going to let us lose the house over a petty grudge? I let out a cold laugh. Petty grudge? Oh, you mean the one where you decided I was good enough to pay your bills but not good enough to be in your will? That grudge. Mom gasped, clutching her chest like I had just slapped her. Jake, that's not fair. We only did what we thought was best for the family. I tilted my head. Best for the family? You mean best for Eric. Just say it. Silence. A long, heavy silence. Eric, who had been weirdly quiet up until now, finally spoke up. Look, man, I don't even want to be involved in this. I didn't ask for anything. I turned to him, finally letting loose. No, you just sit back and take everything that's handed to you. You're 28 years old, Eric. Get a damn job. His face turned red. Dude, what the hell? I took a step closer. You heard me. You want to inherit the house? Start acting like a homeowner. You want to be the golden child? Start paying their damn bills. I'm done being your personal bank. Eric looked away, suddenly very interested in the pavement. Mom took a deep breath, recalibrating her guilt trip. Jake, he's your brother. I nodded. Yep, and I've supported him longer than you ever have. Dad's face darkened. You're being selfish. I laughed. A real, genuine laugh. Oh, that's rich coming from you. I gestured between them. You two decided that Eric deserved everything, and I deserved nothing. And now that it's time to pay the price for that choice, You're trying to manipulate me into fixing it for you. Not happening. Mom's voice sharpened. We thought you'd be mature about this. I raised an eyebrow. Mature? You mean quietly accept that I was betrayed and keep paying your bills? Because let's be real, that's what you wanted. Dad stepped forward, trying to loom over me like he used to when I was a kid. Jake, we raised you. We fed you, clothed you, gave you everything. The least you can do is help us now. I looked him dead in the eye. I already did. For years. And you repaid me by cutting me out. Mom's lip trembled. We thought you'd understand. I exhaled, shaking my head. Oh, I understand perfectly. I understand that I was never family to you, just a paycheck. Silence again. A suffocating, undeniable silence. I turned to Eric, who was still pretending to be invisible. And you? What's your excuse? You had years to grow up, to get your life together, to contribute. But you didn't. Because you knew they'd take care of you. And when they're gone, you just expected me to step in, huh? Eric finally snapped. What do you want me to say, man? I didn't ask for this. I nodded slowly. Right. You didn't ask. You just benefited. His mouth opened, then closed. Nothing. He had nothing. Mom tried one last guilt trip. Jake, we're family. Family takes care of each other. I stared at her for a long moment before answering exactly. So why didn't you take care of me? She froze. No words. No comeback. Nothing. I let out a slow breath, feeling lighter than I had in years. We're done here. I turned and walked back inside, closing the door behind me. Before I even made it back to my couch, my phone buzzed. A new text from Dad. Wow. After everything we've done for you? You're really gonna abandon us? I smirked, typing back. No. You abandoned me. I'm just finally accepting it. I had sinned. Then I blocked their numbers. But I had no idea that blocking them was only going to make things worse. It didn't take long for things to spiral out of control. Less than a day after I blocked them, I started seeing posts on Facebook. My parents had never been the most tech-savvy, but they sure knew how to air their grievances online, especially when they were feeling self-righteous. At first, I thought it was just my parents being dramatic. I mean, that was their go-to move, airing out family drama for everyone to see. But the longer I scrolled through their feeds, the more I realized this wasn't just about me not helping with bills anymore. The posts were disguised as family love, but they were thinly veiled shots at me. Mom had posted something about how she didn't raise her son to be so selfish and how true family helps each other no matter what. A few of her friends commented along the lines of how I was a disappointment and so out of touch with what really matters. Then, Dad chimed in with his own post. So-called family should never turn their back when you need them most. We gave everything to our children, and this is how we're repaid. My son, who should be helping us in our golden years, has chosen to abandon us. He tagged me, adding a passive-aggressive, I hope you're happy, at the end of it. But the real kicker came from Eric. I should have known he'd get in on the drama. He shared a post that was brimming with falsehoods. Some people think that family is just about money. They don't understand that family is about love and sacrifice. I'd do anything for my parents, but some people just don't get that. They're too wrapped up in themselves to realize that true love is about helping those who raised you. He even threw in a disguised jab at me. I wish some people could learn what it really means to be family. I love my parents, and I'm grateful for everything they've done. That was it. That was my breaking point. I sat there, staring at the screen in disbelief. How had it gotten to this point? They'd turned this entire situation around, made me the villain, the selfish son who wasn't willing to support his sacrificial parents. The son who didn't appreciate all the love they gave me over the years. How could they? I had always been the one who worked hard, the one who contributed, the one who never complained. I had to swallow the fact that, somehow, they had convinced themselves they were in the right, and now they were telling everyone that I was the problem. I didn't want to react immediately. I took a step back, collected my thoughts, and waited for a few hours. I wanted to make sure I didn't just rush into something out of anger, but the more I thought about it, the more I realized that I couldn't let them get away with this. If they were going to drag my name through the mud, I was going to set the record straight. So I pulled out my phone, and I started typing. I opened my own Facebook account, the one I kept for close friends and real family, and I posted a lengthy update. I wasn't interested in playing their game. I didn't want to get bogged down in petty back and forths. What I wanted to do was tell the truth. Here's what I wrote. I know I've been quiet for the past couple of days, but I can't stay quiet any longer. My family has been sharing a lot of things online about me that are simply not true. They've portrayed me as the villain, the selfish one who refuses to help my parents in their time of need. I'm here to set the record straight. I've always helped my family. From the moment I could get a job, I've been the one helping with bills, paying for groceries, and supporting them in every way I could. But there comes a point where you can't keep giving without being respected. Over the years, I've watched my parents favor Eric, giving him everything: the house, the money, the attention. Meanwhile, I was expected to just keep giving, without ever being considered as equal. I'm sure some of you might be reading this and thinking, well, that's just how family works. But here's the truth. Family should be a two-way street. When I found out that my parents left everything to Eric in their will, I realized how one-sided this entire relationship had been. They didn't even consider me, not even for a moment. They've made it clear that I'm just the one they can count on when things get rough, but never the one they actually want around unless it's convenient for them. For years, I've been the one funding their lifestyle. I've paid for vacations, chipped in for bills, and even helped out with things like the house taxes. And for what? To be treated like a backup plan? I'm done. I'm not just some wallet they can pull money from whenever they need it. I'm a human being, and I deserve respect. I've earned the right to be treated like I matter, not just when they need something from me. As for Eric, it's time for him to grow up. He's 28 years old, and he's never worked a day in his life. He's never taken responsibility for anything. My parents have enabled him for so long that it's no surprise he's the one they favor. But here's the thing. He's had plenty of time to get his life together. And now, it's time for him to stand on his own 2 feet. To everyone who has been following this drama and supporting my parents, you need to understand that there's always 2 sides to every story. Yes, family is important, but it's also about mutual respect. I've given enough for a lifetime, and I'm not apologizing for taking a step back. This is not me turning my back on family. This is me finally choosing myself. And to my parents, I wish you the best, but I am done being your doormat. I hit post, and instantly, I felt a sense of relief. For the first time in my life, I was telling the world the truth about my family, about how they had taken advantage of me for years, how they had always expected me to be the one to save them, without ever once thinking about what I needed. I wasn't going to let their narrative control my life anymore. The reactions were instant. Some people, who I hadn't talked to in years, came forward to express their support. A few of my cousins, friends of my parents, even some distant relatives liked the post, sending me private messages telling me they were sorry for what I had been through. It felt so freeing to finally have the truth out there, not buried under guilt trips and manipulative behavior. But then came the backlash. My parents and Eric went ballistic. Eric messaged me, "You're a traitor. You really had to air all our business out like this? You have no respect for family." Dad called me, practically yelling into the phone, "You've ruined everything, Jake. You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off. You'll regret turning your back on your own family." But I didn't regret it. Not for a second. I blocked them all. I was done. And for the first time in my life, I was free. Free from the toxic grip they'd had on me for so long. As the days passed, I could feel the weight lifting off my shoulders. I was done with being treated as less than. I was done with being the one who was always expected to fix everyone else's problems. And now, I finally had the freedom to live my own life on my terms. So, no, I don't feel bad for cutting them off. I deserved better. I still do. And from now on, I'm choosing to surround myself with people who appreciate me for who I am, not for what I can give them. It's time for me to move forward, for good. And I will. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.